Hello, and welcome to Lesson 18 of Speed Puzzling 101, Tips and Tricks. Quick speed puzzling lessons in under 10 minutes. Today's lesson is on what to consider for a virtual competition. As a disclaimer, there is no single correct way to complete a puzzle or to prepare to complete a puzzle. My advice is to try as many different approaches as you can and see what works best for you. As we approach the end of the year, the focus on puzzling may be dropping a little bit, or at least competitive puzzling. So there's going to be a few videos on this channel that are getting us ready for the 2026 season, this being one of them. So for today's lesson, you will need nothing. I'll provide some advice and maybe you'll think of something you may need to purchase over the next few weeks or things to consider as you prepare for your first competition of 2026. Over the past 4 months, using some of the advice in this video, my virtual competition results have been much better than what they were this time last year. Again, using some of the advice I'm going to share in here, as well as some advice that was shared to me by one of Canada's top virtual competition speed puzzlers, Liam Kearns. There's a lot of things that can give yourself an advantage heading into a virtual competition. To find out more about Liam's approaches, check out their Puzzled and Chatty episode on this channel in the description below. For the first little bit of strategy, if you are a virtual puzzle competition purist, meaning you don't want to know anything about the puzzle, you want to go in completely surprised, this may not be for you. However, it is worth considering. Everything that I'm going to mention in this video is anything that's public knowledge or that people can figure out. People will be using it to their advantage to prepare for puzzle competitions. So if other people are doing it and your standings, your final standing place, whatever, in a puzzle competition matters to you, you may want to consider it. In November of 2024, I did compete in my first virtual competition and finished in 10th place. It was one of the hardest puzzles I've ever done before that or since. There's been very, very few that have been more challenging for a 500 piece. Finishing in 10th, I wasn't thrilled with the result, but it was so hard to tell because of the actual puzzle. I did 5 more virtual competitions after that in the months leading up to the Canadian Nationals in 2025 and finished between 4th and 9th place, slightly skewing towards the 8th, 9th spots, which is kind of what I expected at the time. I do want to win an individual competition at some point, and I know I'm not going to be winning a national competition or even a round at nationals. I'll compete, but I'm not going to be number one. And board game cafes and small little competitions like that, I don't really count towards properly winning a competition. So a virtual competition put on by the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association is probably the best way that I may have a chance. And with a virtual competition, I can control a lot of the elements that go into the preparation, the environment, pretty much everything except what the actual puzzle itself is. And through using some different strategies, listening to advice from others, in the past 4 months, my results have ranged from as low as 5th place was my worst showing, a 4th place, a 3rd place, 2 seconds, and a 1st place. So these strategies do work. So the first thing you want to consider is the table and the space. You want to be puzzling on the best surface available to you. My first 2 puzzle virtual competitions were done on a circular, ovalish, brown wooden table, less than ideal. A lighter surface is 99.9% of the time better for whatever puzzle you're working on, unless you get something that's a snowstorm and everything is pure white. It's never going to happen in a speed puzzle competition. You'll be fine. When I made the transition to a proper puzzling table in March of 2025, I immediately saw an increase in my speed, not just with virtual competitions, but with all puzzles. The table I switched to is essentially a grayish white type of color. It's not pure white, which is fine, but it's very similar to what you see at most speed puzzle competitions if the tables aren't covered. There's the foldable, easy to transport tables. If you are not able to easily switch to a different table, take a page from the large competitions like the World Championships and buy a large white sheet of card that can go over top of your table instead. Anything to help get rid of those wooden, dark, there's a lot of people that use black tables. It's not going to help you and your speed. And by purchasing the puzzle table instead of using the circular oval table that I had before, it's allowed me to use space distribution a lot easier, which brings me to my second point. In my earlier speed puzzling virtual competitions, I very much limited the space I was using and tried to replicate how much space I would have for a in-person competition. I use the virtual competitions as a way to prepare for the in-person national competitions, worlds, and that was a mistake. So in the virtual competition, you should be prepared to use as much space that is needed for your specific puzzle. If it's larger size pieces, you are going to need more space. Trying to squish yourself into a tiny half-size table is just going to slow you down. On the other side, if you're working with a smaller puzzle, for instance, I've recently done virtual competitions with the puzzle brand Gibson's. Their pieces are slightly smaller than a Ravensburger puzzle, so I don't need as much space. Spreading out all those pieces over a 6-foot table would be counterproductive because the pieces would be everywhere. You want your pieces closer together in that sense. And if you know how much space you'll need before the virtual competition takes place, even better, which brings me to point number 3, how to find that out and what to practice beforehand. Virtual competitions are almost always unknown images and unknown brands, but you can still give yourself an advantage with the information that you have been provided. The puzzle boxes for a virtual competition always or should always arrive to you sealed. Again, you don't know the puzzle image or the puzzle brand, but like I said, there's information you can still gather to give yourself a potential advantage. This is where having a large puzzle collection would be an advantage, especially if it's made up of a wide range of different brands. If you also live close to a puzzle store that has a larger inventory of various brands, this could also be beneficial to you. When I get a new virtual puzzle in the mail, the first thing I do is compare that wrapped puzzle with any puzzle I have in my inventory. That doesn't matter what brand it is. Like I said, there's a bunch of brands behind me. I will try to find one that looks the same in terms of dimensions, height, potential weight even, and see if there is a match. If there's multiple matches, then that's different, but if there's one that matches exactly, that could potentially be the brand that we are working with. In that case, I'm going to do my best to practice that brand of what I've already done in the past. So for instance, if it has the dimensions, the weight, the shape, the size of a Cobble Hill 500 piece box, I'm going to be doing as many 500 Cobble Hill puzzles that I already own or can borrow from other people in the lead up to the competition. This will help me understand the pieces. This will help me understand the cut. It will also help me understand how much space I'm going to be needing on that table to comfortably get through the puzzle. Some puzzles are also easier than others. For instance, the 500-piece Gallison puzzles have an odd ridge around the middle of the sides of their puzzle, so those ones stand out quite easily. But most puzzle boxes are your standard rectangles or squares, so you're going to have to try it with a few different brands. Now, if I don't have a match in my inventory, which is very possible, I will simply measure the dimensions of the puzzle, the width, the height, and the length. The more information I can gather, potentially I can figure out what this brand is. And for the past few months, I've been able to accurately guess what the correct brand is. So once I have the potential brand, I'm going to move on to practicing as much as I can. And I've already mentioned this briefly, but the benefits of this are, again, is that you can get used to those, the puzzle pieces. And that's really the most important aspect. I do a lot of practice for national competitions, potential world's competitions, which includes doing a lot of Ravensburger puzzles, as that's the main sponsor. Rarely will you see a Ravensburger in a virtual puzzle competition. So if I'm only doing Ravensburger puzzles day in, day out, and then suddenly I switch to doing another puzzle brand such as Hollier or Cherry Piazza, doesn't matter. It's going to be a huge adjustment. And if that's the first time doing the puzzle, doing that puzzle brand, I'm not going to do well on that day. Because part of it's just going to be trying to figure out what's going on with the pieces, and I don't like that. So getting used to the piece size, shape, and feel is important. But it also lets you learn about little quirks of the brand as well. Perhaps it's more of a loose fit, or there's false fits in the puzzle, or the images aren't really that clear, or you realize the images are AI based, which is a bit different, or the brand very much likes using painters to do theirs, and it's proper art, which brings its own challenges. Maybe the puzzle brand fits really well together, and once those pieces are together, they're very hard to take apart, especially if you've made a mistake. All these little things add up and will save yourself time if you know about it in advance. But what happens if you just don't have access to buying that many different types of puzzles, or to a warehouse full of puzzles? There's other options that you can take. For most puzzle brands, you can find, if you have the dimensions of the box, you can usually find somewhere online information that reflects those same dimensions. The information is out there. You just need to be willing to really search for it, or reach out to people that you know that may have a larger puzzle inventory and see if any of their puzzles match up. Once you do that, the next step becomes easier. For example, the puzzles for the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association virtual competitions for the month of December were Gibsons, and I do not own any 500-piece Gibsons puzzles, and I wasn't aware of anywhere close to me that I could go and pick it up easier. Yes, I could have gone to Puzzles Canada, but didn't. I wanted something slightly closer. However, on the Puzzles Canada website, they have every Gibsons puzzle image that they have for sale. And so I'm going to spend my time going through each of those images, studying the differences in the designs, the different types of designs that are on there, and spending a little bit each day going through each image, trying to notice little aspects of them. Now, I was able to get my hands on a Gibsons puzzle just before the first competition, which certainly helped. It was very challenging, but I had spent some time, first of all, trying to predict what the images might be, and then narrowing that down to about 15 or so different images, and just spending a few minutes each day going through the puzzle designs on the box. And both of the puzzles that showed up in the December competitions turned out to be in one of the 15 that I thought it might be. So yes, I had a slight advantage in that case because I did spend the time going through the inventory on the Puzzles Canada website, and it helped. And then the final thing to think about is the actual competition day itself. You've spent your time practicing. Maybe you've practiced the brand, great. You worked out how much space you're going to need on the table. You have a good surface to work on. There's some people that have adjustable tables, whatever suits your posture and your back and your neck, whatever is the most comfortable for you but can still make you go fast. Great, arrange that. But there's other things to consider on the day as well. On competition day, my first puzzle of the day is never the competition puzzle. I will always do a warm-up puzzle beforehand. I've mentioned my warm-up puzzle in the past. I've added a few to that since, but if I do have time and I do have a copy of the same brand of puzzle that I think is going to be that day, I will try to do that brand as well. But really, what you really want to do is make sure that your hands are warmed up and you're ready to go. You're not starting cold. Your hands are prepared, and that muscle memory is kicked in on how fast your hands need to go. For your practice puzzle beforehand, avoid any new puzzles. You want to be focusing on speed only. Again, making sure your hands remember that they can go fast. So if it's a puzzle that you know really, really well, great. Anything that gets your hands moving. Once you are warmed up, make sure you have your optimal space set up. You will need a camera for most virtual competitions that show the puzzle that you are working on or shows your puzzling space. In most cases, it just needs to be able to see what your hands are doing, see that there aren't multiple pairs of hands if it's a singles competition, and that it's clear enough that they can see that you are doing the puzzle. but you don't need to have the best angles for this. So move your camera so that you get what you need to have in it, but as long as you have the minimum requirement for a virtual competition, absolutely fine. Overhead cameras are good, just watch your head. If you have a tripod that has the camera off the table altogether, that is ideal. I use a laptop for the virtual competitions for my camera, which does need to be on the table, but it's pushed to the very, very end and out of the way. I don't really need to worry about it. It shows the puzzle good enough. So those are just a few things to consider when you are participating or preparing to participate in a virtual competition. There will be a part 2 on this later on sometime in 2026, but in the meantime, leave a comment below if you have a specific strategy or suggestion for when it comes to virtual competitions. That is it for lesson 18 of Speed Puzzling 101 tips and tricks. Click like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment below if you have a question or a suggestion, and make sure to subscribe so you stay up to date with all the videos on this channel. There are still a few more videos to come for 2025, including 1 or 2 more Speed Puzzling 101 lessons. It is the holiday season for many of us, and you know what? Sometimes we all need a break. But again, make sure to follow along and see what's coming up. There are some interesting things for 2026 already in the works. But that is it for today. Class dismissed, and until next time, as always, happy puzzling.